Hello, Demon Heads. It's Dungeon Master Matt here with a brief content warning for today's episode. We're talking about H.P. Lovecraft and the Call of Cthulhu role-playing game. And we get into some topics about H.P. Lovecraft's racism, white supremacy, some problematic elements within the game dealing with said racism, misogyny, horror, and violence. And if that's not your jam today, then you might want to give this one a skip. Anyway, thanks for listening. Here's the show.
You better roll them dice. You never know if it could change your life. Take a chance, you need a wrong or right. You never know if you don't roll them dice.
Hello, Matt.
Morning, Rob.
Are you feeling sane today? How is your sanity level? Are you have you borne witness to any eldritch horrors, any squamous beings from beneath the earth, any cone-shaped or perhaps strangely fungoid creatures from ancient times?
My geometry is feeling pretty Euclidean today, so I think
That's
I'm
good.
okay.
That's good.
However, I am tasting a bit of aluminum and ash.
I mean,
the psychosphere smells not great right now.
I myself am okay. Again, also mostly Euclidean, though there is the corners of this room. They're crawling. There's something strange about them. I
Just make
see...
sure they're 90 degrees and you will be fine.
Yeah, hello everyone. Welcome to another episode of Dungeon Master of None.
I'm Dungeon Master Matt.
And I'm Dungeon Master Rob. And in case you haven't guessed, we are going to be talking about
Your problematic fave.
That's right. Your very problematic fave, H.P. Lovecraft, and of course the long-running role-playing game Call of Cthulhu, which is weird because we think we've mentioned this, but we have not actually
Oh, of course, yeah.
talked about it in detail. So this is a long overdue episode, and Matt is the real expert here. Though Matt's run several games, I've played in several. We're both familiar with the mythos. But Matt's the
Got
real...
a high mythos skill here.
Matt has a very high mythos score for sure. So tell us, take us through the high level. Like what are we looking at here, Matt?
Yeah, Call of Cthulhu is basically maybe the world's second most popular role-playing game. I mean, that's very much up for debate. But it's published by Chaosium, and it's been out for a very long time. Since 1981, it's currently on its 7th edition, which is the copy of the rules that we decide to look back. It hasn't changed that much, and the basic idea of the role-playing game is that the player characters are investigators, investigating some weird horror, some supernatural and otherworld entities, cults. It's a mystery-solving and horror game, and it's very, very popular.
It is, and we'll delve into the specifics and the mechanics, but it has a very different feel and play style, and the system is radically different from anything else you're likely to have played if you're familiar with D20 based games or even D6 based games. It's definitely its own thing, and this is one of those areas where I'm always harping on this, but the theme and the mechanics and the feel of the game work together very well. Not always to the benefit of the players, but or in a way that is fun. But this is good game design, in my opinion, in that the mechanics of the game and the system itself work to reinforce the type of game that you are playing, which is upsides and downsides, right? So like D&D, if you really want to, or the D20
I do
system,
really want to.
Can sort of be shoehorned into all sorts of different scenarios, right? There's modern D&D, and you can play, lots of different thematic types of games, more adventure-based, more high fantasy, etc. Call of Cthulhu, you really do need to play this as an investigation game, as a suspense or horror game, maybe as a noir game. But if you try to make this like a highfalutin combat, wham pow game, you're gonna be frustrated, and also all your players are gonna end up dead. which
Of
is
course,
a good thing.
Chaosium tried to do this. I mean, this is a long-running game system, the Call of Cthulhu system. This is the 40th anniversary this year. We're recording in 2021. But right after they made the Call of Cthulhu, they turned this system, which is a D100-based skill system, into the basic role-playing game. It was actually predated GURPS as the first attempt at a universal role-playing system. I think Rob is pretty much correct, is that it definitely works better for certain types of play than others.
Yeah, and this is a hot take that we may have to address on another pod, but after rereading this, I'm starting to think that maybe the dream of a universal role-playing system is dead and should have died a long time ago. I'm starting to think that if you want a good role-playing game, you should have a story and theme in mind, and you should work toward that. I'm starting to think that too much liberty in the design itself ends up just sort of being bland. But
it's almost like, Rob, if someone pitched you a some sort of thing for the perfect role playing game, they might just be some kind of huckster trying to like rile you up. Be wary of that.
Be wary of that. Well, walked right into that one.
Speaking of like different systems and stuff, before we delve into H.P. Lovecraft and the mythos, when we get to the system talk, if you're very unhappy, please keep in mind that there's millions of editions like of Call of Cthulhu, the game, right? The Kickstarter raised $500,000 for the 7th edition, and it looks pretty polished. But if you're like, I do not like this D100 system, there's a Savage Worlds Call of Cthulhu. There is a Gumshoe system, which is a great role-playing game for investigations called Trail of Cthulhu. There's a Powered by the Apocalypse version. There's a D20 version. There's also other time periods, right? We're mostly going to be talking about the default time period, which is the Jazz Age. But there's one set in the 90s. There's one set in ancient Rome. There's one set in a more pulp feel 30s. There's one set in the 1880s and 90s called Gaslight. There's a modern system. There's just a ton of sort of different options on how you could approach Call of Cthulhu.
And these games, in my opinion, work pretty well in a more what?
Yeah, maybe all of the systems we just mentioned might be better. With the exception
I wasn't going to say that.
Okay.
It's up to your opinion, but this works really well in a rules light system. Like sometimes I find that frustrating, but the feel and the freeform nature of a Call of Cthulhu investigation works pretty well if you're only making a handful of rolls and they're more, you don't need a ton of crunchy stats to make these games work. A lot of it is atmosphere, a lot of it is investigation, a lot of it is discovery, and you don't need a ton of numbers crunching to make that feel good, in my opinion. Powered by the Apocalypse especially, I think, works really well for Call of Cthulhu. If you don't like
Gumshoe and Trail of Cthulhu as well, because in the system, there's no way you don't find the clues. There's no check to fail if you miss the clue. You always find the clues. The checks are for other things.
Yeah.
What a concept.
What a concept, right?
Speaking of concepts, let's talk about the concept that is H.P. Lovecraft, Harry Potter Lovecraft.
That's right.
The inspiration
Harrius
for
Potterius Lovecraft. Yeah. So, all right. So H.P. Lovecraft was born in the 1880s.
Oh my God, he's dead.
Yeah. Sorry, H.P. Lovecraft, long
Rip.
dead. Rest in peace.
H.P. Lovecraft, he's up there in heaven. H.P. Lovecraft, thank you for telling me it was okay to be weird. Up there, you're hanging out with Prince right now, and John McCain.
Yeah, Lovecraft was a small-time aristocrat, blue blood fellow. I don't even know what his family they had some money, and they fell into the Downton Abbey trap, where they had enough money to consider themselves and enough aristocratic bona fides to consider themselves too good to work, but not enough money to really support not working. And so, Lovecraft, he got an education and he, read a lot, but his father was institutionalized and he was a nervous, sickly kid and had weird nightmares. And So he spent his whole life just, bouncing around, interacting with other, coke sniffing, weirdos from the early 20th century, including Howard, who wrote Conan the Barbarian, and a couple of other pulp writers. And during this time,
which is funny that they got along so well, in that like H.P. Lovecraft from Providence, Rhode Island, this blue blood, and then Howard from like fucking rural Texas.
Yeah,
like,
it's
just
the
nothing to
strangest
do with each other.
They just both liked writing just
sci-fi,
yeah, and
weird tales.
Weird tales, yeah. Anyway, H.P. Lovecraft spent this time. He did a lot of things. He did some ghostwriting. He did some other writing, but he wrote a bunch of horror, science fiction.
I'm remembering the children's PBS show Ghost Rider, and what if the Ghost Rider, instead of being like their dad, was H.P. Lovecraft? Oh, fuck, kids. Get out of here.
Anyway,
we got a real racist guy coming in. Ghost Rider, what are you trying to tell us? Italians and Sicilians are taking over New York?
Hold on. These anyway, so he wrote a bunch of these horror tales. They were horror stories. They were published in Weird Tales, I think almost exclusively.
Yeah.
Which is a pretty rad, like, early science fiction fantasy pulp magazine, where a lot of things like Howard's work and some of the Barsoom stories, I think, were published in Weird Tales. Don't quote me. I don't remember if that's actually true. But a bunch of the early science fiction, fantasy, horror writers got their start in Weird Tales. And he died young of cancer and, Bright's disease? I don't know. He was a weird dude. And I've been dancing around some of the specifics, but anyway, you know what? Matt, anything that we want to say about the man himself before we delve into his creation?
Oh, I mean, I think we have to say a little bit about the man himself. Like,
okay.
he was deeply weird. He was also like deeply uncomfortable with people of other nationalities and races.
Yeah.
He was a like committed racist.
Yeah. So
that went maybe even beyond the attitudes of the time for an upper class white person.
So I guess we should probably like get this out of the way first. And that's that. Yeah, he was like a racist, and probably more racist than his peers.
It's like a comics comic, It's like other racists really respected him.
And it's funny because he was clearly like a very like frightened, nervous child who turned into a frightened, nervous man. And this allowed him to create, honestly, what I think are truly uniquely horrifying ideas, concepts, like monsters and creatures. Like he truly was like not drawing on anything else but his own horrible nightmares. But it is clear that he considered, eldritch beings from the space between the stars, unfathomable to humankind, to be equally as horrifying as finding out that your grandfather was like from India. Like he thought that like your finding your bloodline was tainted to be horrible beyond belief. That mixed race people were monstrous beings determined by their blood quantum. The most famous story about this is Shadow over Innsmouth,
and Horror at Red Hook too, which is basically just him like taking the subway in Brooklyn and being like, oh shit, an Italian, a Spaniard.
That's right. No. Right. But the insane thing about Shadow over Innsmouth is basically a much better rewrite of like one of his earlier stories, which was essentially a guy finds out that one of his ancestors was a monkey person, and then he goes insane. And it's clear that the fear of racial mixing was deeply embedded in H.P. Lovecraft. And I read through the whole section in this book on H.P. Lovecraft, and I did not see one word about his racism.
There is a section about dealing with racism at the time that is just a paragraph, right? Being like, oh, you're saying a game in the 1920s, people might have sexist and racist attitudes. But there is nothing in the Chaosium 7th edition Call of Cthulhu book about how to maybe reckon with the fact that this is based on a game or a world written by a committed racist, and those ideas definitely influence the way that world works. And, maybe you might want to like investigate, unpack that, figure out how to deal with that. Nope. No help on that.
So here's the thing.
Chaosium obviously just doesn't think this is a problem.
They don't think this is a problem.
Well, otherwise they would do it. I mean, this came out 2 years ago, right?
Right. Well, the thing is, it has always been well known that H.P. Lovecraft was a racist, and it has come like to light more prominently in recent years as new people enter the mythos and read things, and they're like, wait a second, this is really racist. But honestly, there's no excuse for Chaosium to not just like acknowledge it. And the reason why they should just acknowledge it is because you are still able to and allowed to enjoy H.P. Lovecraft's writing and the inspiration that he gave to other horror writers and fantasy creators in recent years. Very recent. I'm going to say it's an okay show came out called Lovecraft Country. You should watch it. It's pretty good. Little uneven, but it's about black people specifically dealing with, Lovecraftian horrors and deep magic and all these things. And it is the book, I think, was written by a white person, but the show was produced by a black person. N.K. Jemisin came out with a great book called The City We Became. I just finished it.
That was good.
Which is deeply influenced by Cthulhu mythos. And in the book, the characters acknowledge the racism of H.P. Lovecraft. And it's like, it's fine. I mean, it's not fine, but it's like we are capable of holding the knowledge that he had a cat named N-word Man, and that it is still...
Oh, Jesus. Really?
Did you not know that? Yeah. Sorry. And that he can still have contributed like meaningfully to the horror genre.
Yeah. No, I mean, we're adults here. We can acknowledge it and then take steps to deal with it.
That's right.
And like unpack it. Like we can understand the world like a little bit, right? Unlike, and it's not a bad thing, unlike in Call of Cthulhu.
Right. So I just think that it's important to acknowledge this at the very beginning. Make sure your players are fine with it. It may be that if you have players of color, they're like, I don't really want to play in a Lovecraft-inspired game, and that's okay. But, the racism does not have to be, like, does not, like, underline everything about the game, and there are lots of aspects of the Cthulhu story, or the Lovecraft stories and the mythos itself that, don't explicitly deal with the horrors of race mixing.
Yes. And the other thing is, like, I think our conclusion to this little section here is that you can deal with this, but it is something you have to be conscious of, think about, and address with both yourself when you're creating stories and with your players. The Chaosium book does not help you do this.
It does not.
Any way. So you're on your own.
You're on your own. A lot of people have written about this, and there have been a lot of like good discussions in recent years, and I'll see if we can find one to link, but it's just a matter of saying, hey, here are some elements of the Lovecraft canon that are a little problematic. He was writing the 1920s, and he was racist for the time, and also, or he was, that was the time, and also he was especially racist, and that's how we're going to deal with this, or we're going to avoid these things, or whatever. But I do think to play in a Call of Cthulhu campaign, you have to at least acknowledge, some things about the source material. So let's talk about the source material.
Yeah. What
itself,
makes it so interesting and influential that it's influenced everyone from Matthew McConaughey to N.K. Jemisin in their performances?
Matt, I'm interested in your take on this. We've both, I have read, I think, I'm not really proud of this because I don't know why I did it, but like I got a big Lovecraft, like, compendium, like of basically all his short stories. And I think I read it like once or twice through, not knowing any better. Not all of them are worth it, friends, by the way. There are some Call of Cthulhu stories that are good, and there are a lot that are bad. But I read through all of them, a couple of different times. And what's fascinating to me about them is that he had some real like horrors in his life. He was clearly like he had an imagination that ran wild with the deep dark things of the universe and our insignificance and the cold emptiness of the universe, and he did a pretty good job of capturing that in many of his better stories. And the better stories, and Matt, you can agree or disagree, are the ones that deal with, in my opinion, the ones that deal with the deep weirdness and the cold, uncaring alien nature of the universe, which is manifested in these, mostly the great old ones, creatures like Cthulhu, that are monstrous and incomprehensible and care nothing for humanity and only want to either dominate, consume, or crush us under their feet.
I would say some of the other stories can hit too, like the Reanimator.
Reanimator is a
pretty
great.
good. That was also a great adaptation.
A great example of one of his better stories that isn't critically part of the Cthulhu mythos.
It can be.
It can be.
But you're exactly right. Right. This is the peanut butter plus chocolate together in a Reese's peanut butter cup. It's horror plus sci-fi. Sci-fi, the universe is vast and we are not important to it. Horror, things are scary sometimes. You mix those together, it's actually kind of fun.
It's kind of fun. And the other thing about his racism, or aside from his racism, I mean, there's two things that I think fans of Lovecraft are unwilling to acknowledge that they should just get used to. And the other thing is that, I'm sorry, folks, H.P. Lovecraft was not a very good writer. He had some pretty good ideas, and there are moments of real inspiration, but his writing is dry as fuck. Call of Cthulhu specifically
boring.
Reads like a very tedious newspaper article. It has absolutely no pacing, and then he'll say things like, "I can't possibly describe this thing to you," and then he'll spend a page describing it badly. It's just
it's funny because the Chaosium book gives you a page of H.P. Lovecraft loved using weird words like squishy or whatever to describe things. Here's a whole page of them. I'm like, don't use these. These suck.
These words are awful.
He really loves his weird words to describe things. And they're not good. You don't need them.
But
use normal words.
I think what he does deserve credit for is that he really this came out of nowhere, right? This isn't based on in reading. I mean, he read, and some of his inspirations are very interesting, but this is pulled wholesale from his nightmares or from his imagination, Cthulhu and all these creatures, which are now basically part of our shared cultural experience. He invented on the spot. And I think that other people have done a better job of capturing the nightmarish horror of these things or telling better stories with them. But he deserves credit for having a truly diseased mind, I guess.
Yeah. And I mean, listen, we all occasionally, or at least I think most of us occasionally, like watching scary movies, or TV shows or books. And so, people might also like playing scary or horror role-playing games. I will say that style of play is not for every player, right? I think most players will be like, yeah, I want to do an action adventure game, but not everyone is going to want to play a horror game, right? So with that sort of theme of the mythos in mind, you got to see, hey, is everyone okay for a game where it's supposed to be kind of horrifying, the things you discover? And if they're not, then you probably need to find different players or play a different game.
And frankly, your average slasher movie contains more horrific body violence than most, even Lovecraft's worst stories, but there's still some pretty unsettling and gross stuff in a lot of these.
We'll talk about this in a second, but you can't really do a jump scare on your players. You can try.
Yeah.
We'll talk about it, but it's not the same as sitting in a dark movie theater and then a loud noise happens and then I jump.
Yes.
That happens to me a lot.
It happens to me
I don't
a lot.
like loud noises.
I'm a big
Just
baby
turn the volume
in
down.
scary movies. I hate the jump scare. Jump scare, it's lazy. Don't do it.
It's good. We like it. So this is the mythos as it was originally presented. And yeah, Rob, I think, is mostly right that it's a new thing in fiction. Do you have any adaptations of Lovecraft or Lovecraft work that you actually kind of like. We talked about Lovecraft Country, which has some pretty good episodes.
I liked Lovecraft Country, and there's some really solid episodes there. This is a great question because I think a lot of people have. I think the best way to build on Lovecraft is to take inspiration and go from there, not to, set it directly in a Lovecraft setting. I know you and I both.
But you can do that. You can set it at Miskatonic University,
right, you can.
in Arkham in 1922.
I guess
but
in terms of my favorite adaptations, and some of these are mentioned in the book. Matt and I both agree on this. It's not really an adaptation, and it's more inspired by one of Lovecraft's inspirations. But True Detective Season 1 has some very excellent and subtle Lovecraft influences.
It's like mainlining the secret truth of the universe, Rob.
It is.
You see, death created time to grow the things that it would kill. Just shut up with that shit. No, I think actually True Detective Season 1...
Car is a silent space.
Rob, I don't sleep, I just dream. Now, I think if you actually
I say time is a flat, what is it? Time is a flat circle.
Time is a flat circle,
once a week. I just it's because it doesn't mean anything, but it's true.
It doesn't mean. The good thing about Season 1 True Detective is that if you take it in that Marty, which is Matthew McConaughey's character, who's a little off, his perspective and his visions and dreams are real. The show gives you the explanation of he did too many drugs as an undercover cop, which is, but if you take them as they are real, then it's 100% a Lovecraft story.
It is. It is. So another great example is, and this is mentioned in the book, is the Reanimator movie, which is not really Lovecraftian, or it doesn't have squiggly tentacle beings in it, but it's also got, I'm not actually a huge horror fan because I'm a big baby, but it's one of the best horror films I've ever seen. It's disgusting, has incredible practical effects. It's horrifying. If you are at all a fan of horror and you have not watched Reanimator, it's a classic. You should definitely check it out. It's a really good adaptation of a story that's fine, but is also super slow. I'm just thinking about it. It builds on one horrifying moment, which with Lovecraft loves to do. He's and then there was a scary thing, which you've been waiting the entire story to reveal. And sometimes the scary thing doesn't really justify the 20 pages that you spent being it's
a weird looking rat. Oh man, I wanted the tentacle monster.
But the story is good, and the adaptation is incredible.
I also so I've only seen the first 2 episodes of this. Treinta Monedas, a Spanish show that is getting pretty Lovecraftian. I also really like the Nick Cage, A, B, C, D. The Color Out of Space.
I haven't seen it yet. I've been meaning to see it.
It's pretty good. It's a straightforward adaptation of the short story, The Color Out of Space. It's weird. Nick Cage is crazy in it. I don't think you're gonna get much better than that.
I heard exactly that. I've been meaning to see it. This is a little bit different, but I think that if you're a gamer, Bloodborne is a really good, I guess, homage to the Cthulhu mythos. There are some really incredibly well-designed monsters, and it does a great job of doing. Lovecraft has a thing where there's, sort of different tiers of horror, right? There's people are horrible, and then there's horrible, slightly more bestial things, and then there's your hideous, eldritch beings from beyond the stars. And Bloodborne does a great job of slowly revealing the greater horror to you in much the same way that Lovecraft does. It's a great inspiration.
I would also say, and hopefully this isn't a little too off topic, is that when you plan out and run your own Call of Cthulhu adventures, there's nothing that prevents you from a little bit of adding in some extra things, right?
Right.
You can add in gothic horror. You can add in folklore horror. Hey, every folk tale, like half of them end up just being unfathomably horrifying as someone gets eaten completely unexpectedly. And I think someone who does that in their media with a very different twist on it a lot is Guillermo del Toro, right? There's a lot of his stories that have big monsters or are gothic horror. I'm thinking of Pan's Labyrinth.
Labyrinth has some very
Crimson Peak.
Yeah, both have some Lovecraftian influences for sure.
Right. So I mean,
Stephen King,
you don't have to stay.
Stephen King has his
Stephen King,
his own thing, but like you can, and I think this is like a very good example because it's not like obviously like this is stolen from Lovecraft, but you can feel the influence in a lot of his horror of like Lovecraftian themes and ideas, and what's the best example of this? I mean, there's a lot of this in the Dark Tower cycle, but a lot of it. Yeah,
it is a little Lovecraftian. It could be a manifestation like Nyarlathotep or Nyarlathotep.
The Tommyknockers are kind of sorry.
The Tommyknockers. The other thing is, I mean, even his non-overtly Lovecraftian things, like even, like the fucking Shining, right?
Right.
His approach to psychic powers feels very similar to Lovecraft's approach to psychic powers.
Well,
the point is basically all modern horror has these influences, including Dungeons & Dragons, right? Dungeons & Dragons, right, was written by people who had read some Lovecraft and put some of that shit in there. I mean, in one of the original books, they had Cthulhu and Yog-Sothoth, and they're like, shit, we got to take this off. We don't have the rights to this.
And that's an easy thing to add into any of your D&D campaigns. I tend to, again, as I'm trying to increasingly threaten my players in almost any game, it tends towards, Lovecraftian. You got to get real, big and weird and alien to create that sense of dread. And I tend to fall back on this a lot, to be honest.
I would just say that, overall, the best horror movies have tended not to be the Lovecraft ones. The ones we talked about are the exceptions.
They're sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, but if you take your favorite horror movies, The Thing, Midsummer, Invasion of the Body Snatchers, you mentioned It, The Witch, The Witch, right? All of these can become part of a Call of Cthulhu game or inspiration from them. There's no reason that they can't.
Well, and sorry to take this into the history nerd territory, but I like one of the really interesting things about Lovecraft is if you step back, you can see that this is written by an aristocrat, like in like the deep throes of like early modern or like early 20th century, late 19th century, like scientism, like eugenics and early psychology and Aleister Crowley type investigations into chaos magic and bullshit like that. Like the tales involve some magic with a CK and obviously like a lot of like early concepts which are now debunked, and not just the magic thing but a lot of the early science. But you can see their influence, and it makes for kind of an interesting game. Matt, you can cut this, and I know this may be controversial, but I really like the Chapo Trap House actual plays of Call of Cthulhu
because they're just making fun of it.
Because they're making fun of the time period, and like one of the players is like a phrenologist, and one of them's got like a little like pinky ring full of opium that they sniff, and this is the truth is like this is like very accurate to the the sickly, weak-chinned, aristocratic society that Lovecraft lived in, and all of his characters are. There are no working men. That's not true. Sorry, I should not say this. I can't actually prove this, but like just about everybody in Lovecraft stories, and this isn't a criticism, but they're like a journalist or a professor or some other like
a lot of professors,
professional managerial class losers, and they're all like very like weak and sickly and cowardly, and and this is good because they get their brains turned to
Rob,
mush.
if you're a coal miner in the 1920s, you don't have to deal with this shit. Which is why when you create a Call of Cthulhu character, you should make a coal miner.
Well, and I tweeted about this. I don't know, but like canonically, the best way to survive an encounter with an eldritch horror is to be dumb as shit. And so I would encourage you, if you're playing an investigator, to make your investigator dumb. Make them just like unable to comprehend anything, much less the horrors of the universe, and they'll be fine.
Well, since we're doing things we might cut, here's my last recommendation for other things to read, which I don't actually recommend. But the only H.P. Lovecraft inspired thing that I've read that was actually scary to me, right?
Mm-hmm.
It was actually horrifying, and this comes with a huge content warning of racial slurs, of extreme and graphic gore and sexual violence, was Alan Moore's Neonomicon and Providence graphic novel series.
I have not read that, though having read other Alan Moore, I am not surprised to hear that it is like...
Oh, it's got graphic sexual violence?
It's horrible byaond imagining. Listen, if there's anybody who has actually experienced Lovecraftian horrors or has done chaos
Alan
magic,
Moore
it's Alan Moore.
With Nyarlathotep.
If there's anybody who's
he's
actually
met
a
John
wizard,
Constantine, right? He's like, I met John Constantine. He said hi to me in a bar.
If there's anybody I believe like has like actual knowledge of the world beyond, it is Alan Moore.
So since we're probably going to cut this,
I'm not cutting this. I'm leaving this in. We'll just don't read it unless you're willing.
Okay, yes.
Yeah.
Skip forward if you want to read it. I would recommend not reading it just because I don't know. I didn't think it was that good. But the thing that was actually horrifying from it, right? Providence is about a man who is a gay Jewish writer in New York City who like experiences basically every Call of Cthulhu story tangentially, and then meets with H.P. Lovecraft, and like they hang out and fuck. And then H.P. Lovecraft is mean and racist and homophobic to him, and he leaves, and he like starts going insane. It picks up at the present day or in the near future with the stories The Courtyard and Neonomicon, in which the FBI is investigating some serial killers. There's some copycat serial killers. Nyarlathotep shows up. His name's Johnny Carcosa, which is pretty great.
Pretty good.
There's basically a lot of sexual violence, and one of the FBI agents basically becomes pregnant with Cthulhu himself, and it ends with the world ending. And the point of the story is that the real horror isn't H.P. Lovecraft's shitty short stories, which Alan Moore thinks are like shittily written and stuff. Same as you. He says that the real horror is that like supernatural forces were influencing H.P. Lovecraft to write these and encourage dumb nerds like you to buy a Cthulhu plushie because this influences the freaking psychosphere of the universe,
right? And
allow Johnny Carcosa and like Dagon to basically give birth to Cthulhu, who lies, dreaming, sleeping, basically being unborn, and then he's born and the world is destroyed. And anyway,
you hate to see it.
You hate to see it. Alan Moore's thesis on this whole thing is like, it's your fault, you dumb nerds, for liking this shit. This is why the world is going to end.
That's what we get for. I mean, that's what happens when he writes Watchmen and you don't get it. You don't fucking get it. You fucking idiots don't get it. And now he's mad, and he's right to be mad.
He's been mad for. Alan Moore has been mad for longer than any other human being, but he seems okay.
I mean,
he's
come to terms with it, but he's mad, and he'll never forgive the world for being too stupid. And I honestly, I can't blame him.
I made the Watchmen. Supermen are fascist, or superheroes are fascist. Oh, cool. We love these superheroes, Alan Moore. You made
superheroes are fascists, and also all like driven by their sexual insecurities. And wait, you think that's cool? Wait, that's not. What's the matter with you?
God damn it.
All right. So
let's get to
the system
game
itself. Yeah.
Okay. Mechanics. Call of Cthulhu by the Chaosium edition. Again, choose your own adventure as far as systems. All skill checks and all checks are rolling a D100, which is something Dungeons & Dragons players are familiar with. You roll 2 dice, you get 100. Single thing you has a rating from 0 to 100. The basic idea of the skill system is you want to roll under your rating. The higher rating you have, the bigger chance you have of succeeding. There's also some mechanics for more difficult checks where you have to roll under half your skill, or extreme checks where you have to roll under 1/5 of your skill. Opposed checks are handled quite simply in that both players, or the DM and the keeper and the investigator, both make checks, and you compare the degree of success, ties going to the person with the highest skill. There's a couple other new mechanics introduced in 7th edition that seem cribbed straight from 5th edition or other new RPGs. The idea of pushing, which allows you to try again at grave consequence, a great mechanic to steal for almost any game, which is why it's not from 7th edition Call of Cthulhu, and a basically advantage mechanic where you get to re-roll one of your die if you have assistance or some other benefit. And that's it. That's the Call of Cthulhu system, how it works. There's obviously a lot more with equipment, building characters, running the game, magic, Tommy guns. How much does a bowler hat and a monocle cost in 1922? But there's the 30-second rundown.
And it's interesting because the core mechanic of, again, Chaosium's Call of Cthulhu is very, very simple. Everything is handled with basically one type of roll. That being said, it's not actually simple. Determining a lot of the relevant numbers.
Building a character can be difficult.
Finding the number that you need to roll under can be distressingly complicated. But I will say this, that it is nice that you got the dice and you just need to roll the same thing for just about everything. It makes it very simple. Players aren't like, well, wait, hang on, is this a damage roll? Is this a D20? Is this something else? Everything is handled by one type of roll, and it makes it easy to wing it. If you do not have the numbers in front of you, you can sort of be like, I don't know, this is hard, this is easy. You're trying to roll under half. You're trying to roll under a fifth.
The system, I will say, the other thing of it is your investigators are, in general, especially starting out, really shitty at most things. Right.
Oh, and sorry, now that we're talking about the system, I do want to take a quick detour to say one thing very clearly, and that's, this is a very deadly system. And we've said that before, but it's different with Call of Cthulhu because you are not really given the tools to survive. And one of the things that's very, very well designed about this game is that your investigators are super outmatched, even against the lowliest of Cthulhu mythos creatures. You're just helplessly overwhelmed and dealing with creatures beyond your ken. Even
and the world is just deadly in general.
Right.
Someone pulls out a Luger and shoots you twice. You're probably dead.
You're dead. You're not going to dodge aside. Probably. Combats are a comedy of errors as everybody fails to hit each other. It's a lot if you're looking for a realistic game, right, that has the feel of what a bunch of ordinary idiots would do in a combat or investigation situation. This is a good approximation. I've played in 2 games with Matt. Matt has run 2 games for me where I've died. I got kicked to death by a mutant horse.
That's right.
I botched a roll so badly against a spell that a cultist was casting at me that I think I killed the entire party. I mean, we died, and I think it was my fault for rolling badly because I failed, and then it just cascaded from there. And this is fun, by the way, but your players should know that, and there's a lot of things in the book that are let your players know that they're in danger, but if they are probably or very likely to die or at least go extremely insane because the game is built like that. It is hard to thrive in Call of Cthulhu.
I will say, and Rob said, this is a realistic system with air quotes, right? But it's realistic in that, you can die very easily. Humans are fragile. The system encourages this, but if that is not your cup of tea as a dungeon master, I would suggest the Cthulhu pulp books, which give ideas of hey, what if Indiana Jones had to fight Yog-Sothoth? He'd probably kick its ass. How do you run this in a way where you actually have a better chance at succeeding? And you can do that. You can make different you cannot put a spell in there that is so dangerous it will kill the entire party if you botch it, right? That was a choice I made a very long time ago, I'll admit to.
Yeah, and you can play in a Cthulhu game and have your players be competent, but the Chaosium version, you can get to competence, but even when they get there, it's still very easy to die, it's still very easy to fail, and even a low and mid-tier monster is going to be a threat to your group of investigators. I find that fun. I like playing in these types of Call of Cthulhu games. However, they tend to be short runs or one-shots. I don't really get attached to my characters because I'm having fun with the investigation. I'm having fun playing somebody who is doomed to go insane or be consumed or something like that, because that's an enjoyable departure from being a badass adventuring hero. But it is not something I play with a lot of consistency. So if your players are not going to love that, definitely don't go with the Chaosium, because there's other adaptations of.
Yeah, you use the Savage World. You can totally be a gunslinger who just blasts deep ones in
which is
with
cool.
Headshots.
Which is again, like that's the Bloodborne, that's the Lovecraft country. There are different adaptations of Lovecraft that do not have the same "you are hopelessly outmatched and the universe is arrayed against you" feel. Chaosium tries to capture the original Lovecraft mythos feeling. It's set in the 1920s. Everybody is not that tough or well equipped, and everything that you encounter
not
is
designed for doing the things that they need to do, right? Every character is like, well, I'm a librarian.
Right.
I mean, which is very useful. Don't get me wrong, library use is one of the main skills that you'll need in this game, but yeah, you're not.
It will
you're
not
gonna
help you
defeat
against an insane cultist with a knife or a deep one, or God forbid,
That's why you have one person in your party who's a football player with like a turtleneck and a little leather
That's
helmet.
Right.
The other thing I want to mention about the mechanics, Rob, one thing that I kind of like is that experience, at least for skills, is awarded by checking a skill, right? When you succeed on a skill, you get to put a nice, fun little check mark on your character sheet. At the end of the session, you have a chance to then level up that skill. So basically, you end up leveling up things that you use, and it kind of encourages your players to sort of look at their character sheet and see which of their abilities they haven't tried to use to solve this problem, right? That players have, instead of with players approaching everything like a nail because they have a hammer, they have a huge tool belt, and they're like, all right, I haven't used library sense use to solve this problem yet. Oh, I haven't used my, talking skills to go talk to the secretary of this evil company yet. Why don't I do that, right?
And what the mechanics encourage a certain type of play, right? And that is investigation. That is why your players are called investigators. And most of the game is going to be you are trying to figure out what's happening with a murder or a cult or a weird company or a strange occurrence. And I find this to be a lot of fun. It is, of course, different than a more combat-focused game or a more social-based game. Social role-playing is a part of Call of Cthulhu, but a lot of it is your players trying to find clues that you have dropped and put them together, which is a lot of fun, but it's a different type of playing and it's a different type of game mastering.
Before we get to some other concluding thoughts, there's a couple other topics we need to dive deeply into, which is, I think, how to run an investigation, something we've talked about before, but I think this book has some advice, and sort of talking about what dungeon mastering advice exists in Call of Cthulhu that is actually good advice, and then the sanity system.
Yeah.
The most problematic part, other than the not talking about the races of the game. So where do you want to start with the rest of the stuff?
Well, let's talk about running an investigation, because we have mentioned this before. We talked about this a lot after I did a postmortem after we reviewed Waterdeep Dragon Heist, which is largely a big investigation. And the truth is that as obvious as you think your clues are, your players, they're not obvious. Your players may not put it all together. That's okay. And we discussed a few different ways of dealing with this. I think, and the book has some good advice for this, but the best advice is to have twice as many clues as you think you need. Just more clues than you think your players could ever conceivably need, and more leads to follow until they put it all together.
I think the best advice in this book is something that we'll get to in a second on their dungeon mastering advice, which is how to set up an investigation that can easily be solved. Sometimes we get so in our own head as dungeon masters that we write these mysteries that untangling them, unless you're starting from the beginning, is just impossible. And it gives you a good sort of way to do that. The other sort of thing is, so this is an investigation game. It's also a horror game. Here's a kind of philosophical question I want to ask you, Rob, which is, does horror actually really work in a role-playing game? Can you be scared? Is that the point of horror? Like, what are we actually trying to accomplish as we're sitting around a table or on a Zoom call with our friends, right? We're not trying to jump scare each other. What does horror, mean to you?
Well, and that's a good question. And I would say that suspense is very possible in a game. I'm not sure that being frightened is possible, but I mean, even in a normal D&D game, I am able to like make my players nervous about opening doors or descending into a dungeon, concerned about what will happen to their characters. And so, no, you cannot we've all tried it. It doesn't work. You can't say, and then the door opens, and there's a horrible eldritch being with thousands of tentacles.
Doesn't work.
So many eyes. You're not going to scare them. They're not going to be frightened. Like, no matter how good your description is, no matter how tremendous of a storyteller you are, your players may be thrilled or excited, but they're probably not going to be actually scared, which is okay.
This isn't the Amity horror or, where there's a creepy nun or a little girl in a mirror that scares you in a dark movie
visual
theater.
and auditory. It's very hard to capture that in a game. You can set
horror isn't just about being actually scared in the moment, right? It's about what you were talking about, right? It's about suspense. It's about sort of a nervousness that you yourself are kind of isolated from. Like, I'm nervous for these characters, right? And to do that successfully in a Call of Cthulhu game, I think you just need kind of a couple of things, right? First, obviously, you need everyone's buy-in, right? You need people they want to play a game with some level of horror. And I think the most important thing is just foreshadowing, right? It's that, your players are scared to open a door. Why? Because you've foreshadowed that there can be scary things, right? That there's something else going on. Players getting little tastes of bigger things happening, right? That builds suspense and anticipation, right? It's about anticipation.
Right. Well, and you can be creepy. You can present things that are creepy or unsettling, right? That will build that fear, right? And don't lean too heavily on them. Like, your players are not going to be impressed by a symbol scrawled in blood. But if you just casually mention it and, leave it to their imagination, or if, they defined a body part or some unspeakable statue, of a creature they'd never seen before, over time, these things will build in their imagination and cause, again, suspense and concern. But you should not be trying to frighten your players with descriptions, because it will not work.
Rob's point of they open a door and Azathoth is on the other side is a perfect example of what doesn't work, right? It's not scary to be like, oh, I know Azathoth was there, now he's there, oh no. But if players are given hints throughout a 3-hour-long session that an evil or a creature is coming, right? And then they're suspenseful, they're waiting, they're nervous, and then it shows up, right? That's sort of what you're going for there.
Which is, by the way, the mark of a good horror movie as well. The ones that insist on bludgeoning you with jump scares every 30 minutes to keep you
less is more,
right? The longer, the more suspense, the better, right? The longer that the horror movie can drag out what's actually happening here without relying on cheap tricks, the better.
I think you just need sort of. The other thing is, right, you have that suspense, but you also need an urgency, right? Having some kind of ticking time clock for an investigation and for horror is important, right? Because it's saying to the players, eventually something is going to happen, right? Good or ill, right? And
Right.
you've got to move. So, I would say steal from horror movies that you like, steal from true crime novels and stuff like that, because these are investigators. And, there's some decent advice here on how to do that in Chaosium's book.
Yeah.
All right, we can't put it off any longer, Rob. We got to talk about sanity. Okay.
We got to talk about sanity. Yeah. So
it's problematic. It's not a good understanding of mental health or being mentally unwell or being mentally divergent. Duh.
Yeah. So
it's like as the rule is written, right? You can basically see something scary, you roll on a table, and now you're like you have lunophobia or something. You're selenophobia. You're afraid of the moon, or you like some occultist cast a spell, and now you have ADHD. Like the human brain doesn't work like that. Is that scary?
Yeah,
I don't know. I don't like it.
So let me be generous and say that I get the idea that the human mind cannot comprehend the horrors of the universe as they actually exist, right? I like this concept. It's a good thing. What's awful about sanity as it exists in the Chaosium RPG and is sometimes, transferred to other games is the idea that this will somehow result in you manifesting schizophrenia or agoraphobia or like any other, like, these are not things. I mean, a schizophrenic person is not like necessarily insane in the way that the game presents it, and also that's just, there are better ways to model the damage to your mind. Right. And maybe it's just like sort of like a trauma gauge, or like you have like a certain level of PTSD, like, and rather than I saw a scary monster and now I have rolling 1d100. Oh no, gynophobia. I'm afraid of women. Like what, like there's a list of manias. This is just so like, it's very well, frankly, this is the kind of thing somebody from the 1920s would come up with. They're like Sigmund Freud, give me a list of manias. And then Sigmund Freud would say, here's 100 manias for you to roll on, you weirdo. The mania that you have is wanting to categorize everything.
The thing that really, I think, sucks about this is, one, the words used to describe it.
Yes.
Right? Sane and insane, which are words that don't really work. And are not acceptable by the like medical community anymore when describing, and by like just people who want to be nice human beings.
Yes.
Okay, so there's that. Two,
remember that when this was written, being gay,
1981.
Actually, is that true?
I'm thinking this is. I mean,
in 81 wasn't homosexuality still in the DSM? Hang on, I'm gonna look this up.
I think it was 77 when it was removed.
73. Anyway, the point is
73. Thank you.
I mean,
there's a great This American Life on that.
There was. Sorry, Matt, what are you saying?
I was just going to say is that Rob has pointed out that this isn't how these things work at all. And I would also point out, in Lovecraft stories and in all of the great stories inspired by Lovecraft, this isn't how people kind of get horrified at the mythos. No character from a great Stephen King novel, gets selenophobia, right, from seeing a scary clown. Now, the other thing I say, I think you were hinting at this is already, is there's not the fix for this, I don't think, is that hard, right? In that many games that we have played and talked about on the show have a stress mechanic, have a will mechanic, have a strain. Strain is, I think, my favorite word, right? It's basically an HP pool for your mental fortitude, right? It's gauging you as a human being, your fight, flight, or freeze response, right? And a lot of times in the H.P. Lovecraft and basically every horror movie, right, characters flee when they should fight, or fight when they should flee, or freeze when they don't want to, and that's a thing that happens to human beings, right?
And that's in this, right? The failing a sanity roll means that you first, and this is just the first part, is that you jump, you cry out on terror, you do something you didn't mean to do. In combat, you might like run, flee, grab a, cover from somebody, or just freeze. A lot of systems have this. Burning Wheel models this pretty well. This part is fine, and I love this for a lot of games. I wish that I think more games should include the mental strain of combat or dealing with bad things, because I think it's another aspect of human experience, and it's a good mechanic to include. When it becomes weird is having like an entire sanity score, and then you can then go insane. If this section ended with here's what happens when you fail a sanity roll, that would be fine. It's just if you continue to lose sanity, then you acquire a specific phobia or some other, like, again, deeply problematic idea of like what happens when you see too many scary things. Like,
now,
yeah.
And see, the thing is, the phobia and the other stuff sucks, because to me, the Lovecraft style horror, what happens to characters in Lovecraft and other stories when they've been exposed to too much of the truth of the universe, is that the real horror is that their heuristic for action and perception has changed to something unrecognizable and monstrous. They no longer see the universe, they never see a field with happy flowers and children playing, right? They see something else, right? They're heuristic. They don't treat people with the same dignity and respect anymore. Their heuristic has changed, and that's the true horror, right? You're no longer acting like us.
A great example of somebody who has seen too much is Rust Cole from True Detective, right?
Exactly.
He's seen too much. He's got
PTSD, right? Yeah.
He's got PTSD, but like he drinks too much. He doesn't sleep. He's a little bit like weird to be around. He's not like, he hasn't like developed.
He's pessimistic. He doesn't have relationships with other human beings, right?
But like, even though like he's clearly
he has
like
no self-worth,
really out there, like he's still a functional human being. He's still like not like, I'm sure a psychiatrist would have all sorts of things to say about him, but like his response to seeing that is to drink too much, stop sleeping, to be weird, and to like have trouble relating to other human beings. These are capable of being modeled in a game without this, again, deeply problematic understanding of sanity and insanity and rolling on a phobia table.
Right.
I can't believe they kept this in. I cannot believe they kept this in the year of our Lord 2019. Who is in charge over there at Chaosium?
I feel like it's the same people who's always
I'm pretty
been
sure
in
it's
charge
always
over it.
it's the same people.
It's the company has a lot of inertia. It's been going for 40 years. Call of Cthulhu is the only system I think of theirs that has ever really made any money, and it's made them a lot of money. Again, this game is incredibly popular. This is in many countries. I think there was an article about how in Japan, Call of Cthulhu is more popular than Dungeons and Dragons.
Oh, interesting.
And again, the thing about the sanity system is it just really sucks, and it's the thing that people talk about with this the most. And
it's also
it's
not
just
fun. It's like it's bad, and it's bad for like being fair and equitable to human beings and understanding like different types of people. It's also not fun. It's a bad mechanic. It's terrible on multiple levels.
And again, every system from Shadowrun to Genesis to Savage Worlds has basically a mental HP pool, right? Whether it's stress or strain or will, right? And those mechanics work just fine for dealing with this stuff, right? You don't need the sanity pool. You don't need your player characters going, "Oh no, I saw the dead dog on the street. Its guts burst open. I fall on the ground and roll." Like, come on, man.
Yeah. So
listen here, HP. And also, the book itself has sort of, instead of going insane, right, it has a description of something called Mythos Harden on page 169, which is basically describing what I would want to describe with a character who has maybe seen too much, right? There's a paradigm shift in their personality and comprehension of their place in the cosmos, right? That's what the horror is about. We're insignificant in the universe. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. So I would cut this rule. I would adapt it. But as it is, it sucks and it's bad from a lot of different perspectives. And it's given that it's such a core part of the game, it's very unfortunate that it is. So there are better ways to deal with this. And yeah, this ain't it, Chief, I guess is what I would have to say.
Let's wrap up on something positive,
Okay.
and with a quick discussion of the dungeon mastering advice in this book.
That is also something I'm positive about, because this book is maybe the first role-playing game and core rulebook that I've ever read that is clearly oriented toward, well, in this case, the keeper or the game master. So much of this book is how to run a game, and I appreciate that. It's almost mostly, here are the tools you need to run a good game, and it's very, very, it's good advice. And it's well written. It's very thorough.
There is a great section here, and it's so insane that other systems don't do this, on how to run a published adventure. There's, of course, also two examples.
2 scenarios.
Oh my God. Imagine if Dungeons & Dragons came with 2 scenarios and advice on how to run them in general. Here's the other thing about Call of Cthulhu, because we're in year 40 of Chaosium Call of Cthulhu. There are a shit ton of published adventures. And if you compare it in the number of adventures published for the system, number 1 is probably Dungeons & Dragons. Number 2 is Call of Cthulhu. Maybe it's no coincidence. I don't know what is the cause and what is the effect here, that these are the number 1 systems, because it's hard to come up with an adventure. There are a lot of adventures. There are some great ones. The Masks of Nyarlathotep is basically an insanely long adventure that is super, super good. Critically acclaimed. I absolutely love the free adventure that comes with the D20 version of the rules by Monty Cook, published in 2002 or something like that. I've run that one 4 or 5 times. It hits every time. But anyway, the Dungeon Master section, or the Keeper section of this, gives you great advice for how to run a published adventure. Read through the whole thing. Okay, now read through it again in detail. Okay, now take some notes. Okay, there you go.
It's very, very, yeah. I really appreciated the thoroughness of this book. I guess this is technically a review. We usually tell you whether or not you should or should not buy it. If you want to run this game, you are getting your money's worth as a GM by buying the core book. You will have
absolutely.
2 scenarios and everything you need to run it. You will not need to buy another book. You will not need to, there are supplements which are fun.
You'll need to buy Cthulhu Invictus if you want to run a Cthulhu campaign set during the Julius Caesar Pompey Civil War.
There are supplements that can be worth buying, but you don't need any of them. And that is an advantage that it has over a lot of systems.
The other thing, and I think we mentioned this before, is that this is the 7th edition. There's a lot of published adventures. Those are both good things. Most of the published adventures are from previous editions. It don't matter.
It doesn't matter.
The edition has not changed enough that you will hardly have to change
the system,
anything.
But it's still a D100. You're still rolling under. It's so easy to adapt.
You can run a 4th or 5th edition adventure in this just as easily as a 7th edition. Yeah. The other good advice I have, or I think there are 2 other good points that I have from the DMing advice, which is, one is just the advice to pull from the unexpected, right? Especially when players sit down to play a Call of Cthulhu game, if they've played one before, they have certain expectations, and those expectations are probably bad. And if you pull from other sources of horror or mystery or true crime, your players will, I think, absolutely love it, right? If they play a Call of Cthulhu game where there's something doing Invasion of the Body Snatchers, it will be enough of a mix-up that they will have a lot of fun, and it's not just fighting another tentacle beast in something's basement. If the players have never played Call of Cthulhu before and are less familiar with the mythos, make sure you run it as initially a true crime investigation. Like most horror movies start off not with a giant monster eating people, right? But with normal people doing normal investigations and escaping from a normal situation. And then the supernatural anticipation, foreshadowing, and then intrusion into the story.
Yeah. I think that's great advice.
The other suggestion that this book has that is super useful for all dungeon masters is in the Keeper section, it clearly lays out how to kind of write an adventure in a way that a lot of books don't have. The steps are very simple. You need to start with, what's going on, plus what will happen if the investigators don't get involved. And then you need to come up with a couple sort of outlines of how do you solve this thing? How do the investigators find it out? Basically asking, after you lay out the plot of what's happening, what are the connections between various parts, the clues that people can find? And then last, you ask, what's the hook? How do the players get involved in the beginning? You come back together, you have 3 simple questions. What's the hook? What's going on? Plus what will happen if the investigators don't get involved? Question 3, how do you solve it? AKA, what are the connections? A super easy way to sit down and organize your thoughts when writing an adventure.
Yeah. Here, the other thing is, this is an enjoyable book to read. I think a lot of the ones that we have reviewed recently frustrated me in one way or another. There are some organizational issues that I have with this one, like all books, but it's mostly intuitive. Everything is informative. There's some repetition, but I didn't waste my time. It wasn't like frustrating or confusing at too many points. It did make me want to like run or play in a game again, borrow and steal. But this is Call of Cthulhu is a very like, if you're interested in, I guess, leveling up as a DM or a GM, it's a good thing to read. It has a lot of really good advice. It's very thoughtful about what makes a game fun to play and what the challenges are in running it, and how to approaches to dealing with that. And I think it's very, very useful for when you're trying to think about designing or running your own adventures.
Cthulhu and the mythos and H.P. Lovecraft are baked into a lot of the bones these days of sci-fi, horror, fantasy, from Dungeons and Dragons to fucking Game of Thrones, right? Has a gajillion mythos references and themes in it, right? What is dead may never die, the Church of Starry Wisdom, et cetera, et cetera. Like, it's inescapable. The game itself it's a good game, right? It's been a titan of the hobby and the industry for 40 years for a reason. The 7th edition is a solid core book. It has everything you need. The layout is wonderful. The art is great. It looks nice and reads nice. It doesn't deal with the issues that a reasonable person would want to deal with when reading this book. The racism inherent in some of the stories and how to adapt with that. The sanity mechanics are basically, they feel like something from the 1920s, right?
And the core mechanic is still kind of clunky, still kind of like not that fun to play. So you may want to take this and then use a different system, because we've mentioned several that are better, but the book is useful.
The
in a lot of
advantage
ways.
is there's 20 other systems you can play this with.
Right.
I would just say if you're running a Call of Cthulhu game, at least based on my own experience, right, it's really important to get the buy-in of your players, to definitely use all of the other RPG safety tools that we've talked about, just because I don't know if there's something about horror that, like, as a genre, I think there absolutely is, right? That, you're more likely to need the safety tools than before. You always need them, but you need them even more than always here. So
yeah, absolutely.
I've seen the dark universe yawning, Rob.
Yeah,
where black planets roll without aim, where they roll in their horror unheeded, without knowledge or luster or name.
And I've heard the howl of the hounds of Tindalos. They are coming for me. They are scratching at the walls. They are crawling between the angles of my unfortunately not 90-degree room. And
it's lunchtime. I could use some chicken Tindalos.
All right. Thanks for listening, everybody. If you have thoughts, concerns, questions, if there's something else you want us to cover, Matt and I we mentioned we're going to try to be covering some.
Man, we got a lot of horror to talk about. We got a new Ravenloft book coming out. No, we gotta go back and do the old Ravenloft books. Domains of Dread, Realms of Terror.
Got lots of things to talk about, so we'll be trying to cover that. But yeah, thanks for listening, everybody. Rate, review, smash that like button.
Rob, this episode is like somebody's memory of a podcast, and the memory is fading.
That's right.
Smells of aluminum and ash.
Thanks, everybody. That which is dead may never die. And wait, sorry, I got it wrong. Something.
In relay. Oh, yeah, we forgot to say all the funny words.
Fthagan, yeah, Cthulhu relay, Cthulhu Fthagan, ya. I like the ya part. Anyway,
Yeah.
keep rolling them dice, everybody.
Hey there, Cthulhu, down there in your sunken city. You're a billion light years distant, and the stars look very pretty from Relay. So close and yet so far away. E-A. Cthulhu Fthagan, or is that Cthulhu Ftine? I can never quite remember, 'cause I'm not in my right mind since I met you. No one corrupts the way you do. You know it's true. Oh, it's what you'll do to me. Oh, and all humanity. Oh, you'll rise up from the sea. Oh, kill everyone slowly, except the ones like me.